In the final seconds of February 5, 2026, precisely at 11:59 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, Buckingham Palace unleashed a declaration that would send shockwaves through the monarchy and beyond. Across every official communication channel, a terse, cryptically sealed dispatch appeared, stamped with the royal cipher and addressed explicitly to select members of the press, Parliament, and the Privy Council. It carried a single, monumental message, delivered with the quiet authority only the Crown can command. In accordance with the wishes of Her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, the private estate known as Anmer Hall would pass immediately and exclusively into the custodianship of her daughter, Her Royal Highness, the Princess Royal. The news struck like thunder. Veteran palace correspondents and legal advisers alike were left scrambling, not because of the estate's name, Anmer Hall had long been whispered about as part of the younger royal's domain, but because of its extraordinary redefinition. That very night, Anmer Hall was officially declared Sanctum Region A hidden spiritual fortress of the Queen, shielded from public eyes and even many within the royal household. And the heir was unmistakably Princess Anne, not Prince William, not King Charles, and certainly not any direct successor by primogeniture, a shocking rebuke of centuries of traditional succession. Within 45 minutes of the announcement, palace aides confirmed a bombshell fact. Anmer Hall had never been formally recorded under the Crown Estate or the Duchy of Lancaster. Instead, it had existed under a private sovereign title, deliberately reclassified in 2019 by Queen Elizabeth II through a legal instrument known as the Royal Independence Coil. This mechanism, a closely guarded secret known only to 3 legal witnesses and a single royal archivist, allowed the Queen to sever certain properties from institutional succession and assign them based purely on personal moral authority, overriding centuries of precedent. Nestled discreetly near the Sandringham estate in Norfolk, Anmer Hall had always presented a curious paradox. Public records depicted it as a minor rural residence, briefly occupied by the Prince and Princess of Wales during the earliest years of their marriage. But the estate's deeper truth was intentionally cloaked in ambiguity. What the public assumed to be a Georgian house was, in reality, a fortress of history and secrecy. Originally built in the late 18th century by the Walpole family, the estate was quietly purchased in 1916 by King George V. It was then transformed into a contingency command post during both World Wars, known at the time as Amherst. Here, encrypted communications passed through underground tunnels, linking it to the now defunct Royal Signal Bunker northeast of Sandringham, ensuring the Crown's wartime messages remained unbroken and secure. By the 1980s, the estate had taken on a profoundly private purpose. It became Queen Elizabeth II's moral sanctuary, a refuge where no journalist followed, no staff lingered uninvited, and where political papers and communications never intruded. On February 6th, the initial announcement was followed at 7:15 a.m. by a secondary release to the Royal Correspondence Guild, highlighting selected portions from the Queen's handwritten codex. One line alone captured the estate's soul. Let Anmer Hall remain untouched. Let it breathe in silence. This land does not serve the Crown. It serves the sovereign's soul. Palace archivists confirmed that in October 2019, during a weekend spent entirely alone at Anmer Hall, Queen Elizabeth handed Princess Anne a leather-bound manuscript titled simply The Anne Codex. Written in the Queen's unmistakable cursive, the codex contained a chronological account of Anmer Hall's wartime significance, its hidden architectural intricacies, including a sealed chapel, an underground relic vault, and a phonograph recording chamber, and concluded with a directive of supreme weight. This house is yours when I am no longer the steward. Guard it as you would a soldier's grave. The codex had remained in the South Vault at Windsor Castle under the lock of Sir Alec Denholm, the Queen's late legal counsel, until January 28, 2026. On that day, it was retrieved and decrypted in a controlled ceremony attended by Princess Anne and the Duke of Kent. Sources within the Lord Chamberlain's office reported that, since mid-2025, Queen Camilla and her son Tom Parker Bowles had been manoeuvring behind the scenes to stake commercial claims on Anmer Hall, seemingly under the mistaken belief that it remained dormant Crown property. Confidential memoranda obtained by the Herald Register revealed that in August 2025, Camilla's private office formally requested clarification from the Royal Land Use Commission on Anmer Hall's Restoration Fund classification. Their strategy, according to emails from Spires Mallory, Camilla's legal advisor, was to argue that significant taxpayer-funded maintenance entitled them to partial public access, a calculated move to pave the way for commercialization. Indeed, plans were already in motion. If approval had been granted, Camilla and Tom had prepared a full-scale redevelopment under a Luxembourg-based entity called Crown Grove Holdings Limited, listing Tom Parker Bowles as executive director. The leaked internal deck exposed Camilla's vision: transform Anmer Hall into a luxury estate branded as the Queen's Retreat, complete with a 5-star culinary experience curated by Tom, estate-aged wines, a heritage herb farm supplying branded products, and a subterranean mindfulness chapel renovated for VIP patronage targeting elite East Asian and Gulf clients. The intended reveal? A discreet preview dinner in Hampshire on February 2nd, 2026. But fate intervened. On January 31st, 2026, Princess Anne arrived at Anmer Hall under armed escort, accompanied by 2 legal officers, a Royal Heritage Registrar, and a single photographer from the Royal Historical Society. In a quiet yet formal ceremony, she affixed the sovereign's black seal to the south gate, a ritual last used in 1961 to close the Elgin archives. She spoke no words, but her hand nailed a plaque to the oak entrance declaring in unshakable terms, this land was never lent, it was vowed. As long as breath remains in the House of Windsor, Sanctum, Virginia shall never be sold, licensed, or claimed by ambition. Hours later, Camilla cancelled her February 2nd preview, and Tom Parker Bowles' office released a terse line: further development would not proceed at this time. But the disruption had been profound. A source close to the Duchy of Cornwall Ethics Committee confirmed that an investigation had been launched into undue influence and attempted commercial encroachment on a sealed sovereign property. When the Royal Independence Coil was opened in the Oak Room of Windsor Castle on January 28, 2026, the room fell silent, not because of the legal declaration, but because of the codex itself. Bound in deep green Moroccan leather, worn from years of handling, the codex was no mere ceremonial artifact. It was a manual of guardianship, part memoir, part instruction, entirely penned by Queen Elizabeth II during private weekends at Anmer Hall between 2017 and 2019. A line read simply, "For Anne, who asks nothing but serves all." It was a roadmap, not only to the estate's hidden heart, but to the hidden heart of the Crown itself. Anmer Hall, long believed to be a simple Georgian residence with minor modern updates, revealed itself to be a complex, multi-level subterranean archive dating to World War I. The codex meticulously chronicled every hidden feature, a sealed vault beneath the east wing containing 8 dozen phonograph recordings, including private reflections on the Suez Crisis, the Aberfan disaster, and Diana's funeral. Conversations with Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, and Jacques Chirac, a subcrypt chapel possibly dating to the 15th century, with carvings of Queen Mary I's initials and the Latin inscription Reginae Servitium Silentium, an armoured cabinet labelled M. Windsor, referencing the Queen's wartime moniker Lilibet Windsor, contained sealed war letters, V-Day photographs, and telegrams signed by King George VI in 1944, marked eyes only. The Queen's instruction was explicit. These were memories of burden, not spectacle, to remain with someone who understands duty without fanfare. Princess Anne's stewardship, therefore, was no ceremonial role, it was curatorship of truth. The codex included a chapter dated March 15, 2018, titled The Daughter Crown List, celebrating Anne's unmatched loyalty. She never asked for land or favour, never brought consultants to Sandringham, never claimed a wing at Windsor. She simply arrived, worked and protected the crown when others protected themselves. Anne, austere yet warm, had long been regarded as the royal family's unflinching soldier. Perhaps the most striking section of the codex was marked, "Confidential, activate upon my death." Elizabeth warned there would be those who circle like crows around what they believe to be forgotten land, wearing soft shoes, carrying linen-printed plans, claiming it for heritage, modernity, or the people. But Anne was to resist, without compromise. Insiders say this was a direct preemption of Queen Camilla and Tom Parker Bowles's ambitions, foreseen long before 2025. Before unsealing, the only person besides Anne to have read the codex in full was Sir Jonathan Arbery, the Queen's longtime private solicitor, who passed in March 2023. He had deposited it in Windsor's South Vault under a triple seal system involving the Privy Seal Office, the Duchy of Cornwall Ethics Desk, and the Royal Heritage Archive Commission, ensuring that Anne's inheritance would remain untouched, uncontested, and protected from all ambition, greed, or interference. Sir Jonathan Arbery, the Queen's longtime private solicitor, had left behind a handwritten verification note now preserved in the Royal Archives. Its words were not casual, not legalistic, but moral and weighty. "This is not a property transfer. This is a moral trust, a land not of real estate, but of real faith." And on that morning, Princess Anne returned alone to the estate, without fanfare, press, or entourage. Only the crunch of gravel beneath her boots and the whisper of the Norfolk wind through centuries-old oaks accompanied her passage. Carrying the key once worn around Queen Elizabeth II's neck, Anne unlocked the side cellar door, the very same that had safeguarded the estate's hidden chapel and relic vaults. A veteran butler, who had served both mother and daughter for over 40 years, reported that a single candle flickered in the sealed chapel, casting shadows over ancient stones. There, Anne quietly recited Psalm 46. "God is within her, she will not fall." In that moment, no title was exchanged, no photograph taken, yet a legacy passed, a legacy not of wealth, not of prestige, but of memory, duty, and silence. If Princess Anne's lone return to Anmer Hall was an act of moral restoration, then the year preceding it had been nothing short of a covert siege. And this siege was not mounted by outsiders, but by those closest to the royal inner circle. Behind silken drapes, amidst private dinners and curated receptions, Queen Camilla and her son Tom Parker Bowles manoeuvred with relentless precision to seize control of Anmer Hall. Their objective was clear: not preservation, not devotion, but transformation. They aimed to convert the Queen's sacred sanctuary into a commercial playground, turning centuries of quiet and reflection into luxury hospitality and curated experiences. By October 2025, just 3 weeks after the Queen's memorial services, the plan took shape. A company registered in Luxembourg under the innocuous-sounding name Crown Grove Holdings Limited revealed its intentions in plain sight to insiders. Tom Parker Bowles was executive director. Spires Mallory, Camilla's legal advisor, became chief legal officer. Amal Devi, formerly of a Gulf Hospitality Group, assumed CFO responsibilities, while Jean-Benoit Vale, famed in Geneva for luxury branding, was creative director. Internal documents leaked on January 25, 2026, exposed Crown Grove's true mission: revitalizing select heritage estates under the guise of soft royal branding and ethical luxury. But the scheme screamed ambition. Anmer Hall was the flagship target. The internal investor deck outlined an audacious £82 million redevelopment plan divided into 4 quadrants. The culinary Sanctum, a 5-star tasting lounge inside the renovated East Library, producing Royal Wild branded foods using Anmer Hall's orchards and herb gardens. Estate-exclusive vintage cider and honey sold in limited seasonal boxes. The Wellness Cloister, a regenerative spa installed within underground war-era bunkers using remastered vinyl recordings from the Queen's private phonograph vault for sound therapy sessions, and overnight packages priced at £4,000 per guest. The Chapel of Reflection was to be converted into a mindfulness centre, partnered with Z Collective, a UAE-based spiritual retreat conglomerate. The Heirloom Gallery, a semi-private museum, would showcase curated, non-sensitive royal artefacts, co-curated with a Parisian publishing firm linked to Parker Bowles. Even the company tagline was audacious, where legacy meets luxury. The Queen's Peace, available by reservation. Between November 2025 and mid-January 2026, Camilla hosted a series of off-the-record receptions across the English countryside to secure institutional backing and donor endorsement. Henley-on-Thames in November featured guests from the Royal Heritage Restoration Fund and Middle Eastern cultural envoys. Guildford in December offered a private tasting of prototype Royal Wild cheeses, attended by representatives of Michelin marketing groups. Hampshire in January 2026 was to host the final dinner, softly announced and carefully timed, but it never occurred, cancelled abruptly just hours after Princess Anne's ceremonial sealing of Anmer Hall. Camilla's messaging remained polished. This is not a land grab, but a reinterpretation of the Queen's legacy through modern experiential values. Yet behind closed doors, the truth was clear. Ambition had been thwarted. A Phase 4 slide quietly suggested fractional ownership of extended stay suites, raising immediate red flags within the Duchy of Cornwall's legal office. By late December 2025, Princess Anne had been informed of Crown Grove's covert existence via an intercepted planning request filed discreetly through the Norfolk County Development Board. It requested temporary access to survey heritage structures for potential cultural revitalisation. Anne did not respond with press statements or political posturing. She responded through protocol. On January 21st, 2026, Anne invoked Clause 14 of the Sovereign Ethics Mandate, 1974 revision, a little-known mechanism allowing a senior royal to place a 30-day ethical freeze on any estate with unresolved succession. By January 26th, the Royal Archives Integrity Panel had reviewed the codex. By January 28th, the Royal Independence Coil was unsealed and decrypted. By January 31st, Anne had sealed Anmer Hall with the black wax crest of continuity, rendering all Crown Grove activity null and void under Royal Trust Law. The consequences were immediate. On February 1st, 2026, Tom Parker Bowles withdrew from his keynote at the Royal Culinary Heritage Expo in Bath. On February 2nd, the Crown Grove preview dinner was quietly cancelled, invitations quietly retracted. February 3rd, Camilla was seen at Ray Mill House, reportedly meeting with legal advisors for over 6 hours. February 4th, a brief statement was issued. Her Majesty regrets the misalignment between vision and tradition. She stands with the King's respect for the Queen's legacy. Yet insiders knew Camilla remained furious, quietly probing the Queen's other sealed properties, sparking speculation that Anmer Hall was only the first battle in a wider campaign. While headlines celebrated Princess Anne's inheritance and the thwarting of Crown Grove, a hidden hand orchestrated the ultimate defence. H.R.H. Prince Edward, Duke of Kent. At 90 years old, the Queen's cousin may not appear the obvious architect of resistance, yet unsealed documents and insider accounts reveal that he was the silent sentinel who ensured Queen Elizabeth II's personal directives survived intact, protected and lawfully executed. He acted not with speeches or pomp, but with counsel, codes and centuries-old institutional authority. The Duke, a former British Army officer and Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England, was considered the monarchy's unofficial archivist of custom and conduct. He alone, not King Charles nor Prince William, retained continuous access to the Privy Seal Office, the bureau responsible for registering and safeguarding non-crown sovereign documents. Over 5 decades, he supervised over 4,000 legacy documents, including Royal Codicil Archive Entry R-2019, the document now celebrated as the Anne Codex. After several weekends at Anmer Hall, Queen Elizabeth summoned the Duke to Wood Farm, Sandringham. According to the now unsealed logbook, she instructed him to witness and inscribe a new class of legal instrument, the Royal Independence Coil. Designed to stand apart from Crown estate and duchy laws, it reclassified Anmer Hall as a moral sovereign trust, passed along lines of personal integrity rather than bloodline or institution, and encoded protections against conversion, subdivision, or public-private partnership without explicit consent from the steward, Princess Anne, herself. The Duke's process involved 3 redundancies, sealed key phrases, and a private confirmation ledger housed under the south wing of the Royal Archives. The oath of ethical continuity, countersigned by the Royal Ecclesiastical Clerk, ensured that the estate would remain untouched. These mechanisms, activated between October 2019 and February 2020, vanished from public records. When whispers of Camilla's plans reached senior retainers in December 2025, a courier attempting to access Anmer Hall's structural blueprints triggered a silent alert within the Royal Heritage Protection Chain, a protocol created post-war to monitor unusual requests for sealed properties. The alert bypassed King Charles and Princess Anne entirely, going straight to the Duke of Kent. Within 6 hours, a confidential emergency session convened at the Prince Consort's Library, Kensington Palace. Present were the Duke, Baroness Ellen Blackstone, Lord Anthony Crowthorne of the Royal Trust Audit Panel, Sir Gideon Hale, Church Liaison for Consecrated Royal Property, and Princess Anne herself. For over 2 hours, the coil was unsealed, decrypted, and cross-verified against the Queen's personal ledger. Lord Crowthorne noted officially, R2019 was valid, witnessed, and exceeded all minimum sovereignty thresholds. Succession rights legally fell to Princess Anne. No other claimant possessed institutional or statutory grounds to challenge her. By January 10th, the Privy Seal Office quietly blocked all third-party claims to Anmer Hall. Checkmate had been executed before Camilla even realised she was in play. On January 29th, 2026, the Duke enacted the forgotten Seal of Stillness, traditionally reserved for sacred properties. Imposing a century-long embargo, it rendered legal challenges virtually impossible, solidifying Anmer Hall as the first property in modern British history to receive this protection. Princess Anne, famously reserved, reportedly turned to her cousin after the Cosell's unsealing and said, "Thank you for keeping the locks closed until the wolves passed," to which the Duke replied, quietly but firmly, "It is done, and it shall remain so." According to one long-serving staffer who had watched the royal family navigate countless crises, "It's not the wolves I feared, it was the merchants." And that week, the quiet words carried more weight than any headline. Later, the Duke of Kent was seen attending Mass at All Saints' Chapel in Norfolk. When approached by a local reporter and asked about the recent flurry of royal land disputes, he offered only a single, deliberate response. "The Queen made a promise. I made sure it landed." Since then, he has withdrawn entirely from public view for the month of February, leaving the estate and the legacy to the steady hands of Princess Anne. The sealing of Anmer Hall under Princess Anne's custodianship marked more than a legal victory. It signalled the collapse of a high-stakes covert campaign that Queen Camilla and her son, Tom Parker Bowles, had spent over 18 months orchestrating behind closed doors. The hours and days following Anne's quiet preemption revealed a monarchy in microcosm. Private fury met with public silence, a rapid unravelling of carefully laid plans, and the swift retreat of investors who had once envisioned a bold transformation of Anmer Hall into a cornerstone of Camilla's post-Elizabethan influence. On February 2nd, 2026, Crown Grove Holdings Limited, operating from its discreet Luxembourg executive suite, received termination notices from 2 of its principal funders, Zenji Collective, a UAE-based wellness conglomerate with deep ties to Gulf royals, and Maison Vallée, a boutique Parisian venture firm that had co-financed Tom Parker Bowles' culinary brand. Financial documents leaked to the Financial Chronicle confirm that both withdrawals were triggered by a contractual clause requiring active sovereign endorsement from the reigning monarch or crown. With Anmer Hall legally sealed and public support absent, the entire commercial structure collapsed almost instantly. By February 3rd, Crown Grove had filed for dormancy with Luxembourg authorities. Inside palace walls, Queen Camilla's fury was palpable. Sources described her as incandescent upon realizing that her meticulously orchestrated estate conversion had been thwarted not by rivals or press, but by the deliberate actions of Anne and the Duke of Kent. One senior aide remarked that the Queen had never appeared so publicly exposed. Reports indicate that she confronted King Charles at Clarence House late on February 2nd, demanding that he issue a balancing directive to explore Crown-endorsed heritage partnerships for other unused estates. The King, already weakened and semi-retired due to ongoing health treatments, reportedly refused. Those present noted that Camilla stormed out, leaving behind a folder labelled Anmer Sustainability Redevelopment. The fallout for Tom Parker Bowles was equally severe. By February 4th, Royal Wild, his luxury culinary brand, was placed under strategic review. Multiple European and East Asian distribution deals were frozen pending legal assessments regarding his use of royal insignia in early product mock-ups. A whistleblower inside Crown Grove confirmed that Tom had been preparing to launch a fractional co-ownership culinary resort platform, modelled after elite vineyard timeshare clubs. While technically legal, such plans violated multiple sovereign integrity codes designed to prevent speculative syndication of royal property. By February 5th, Tom had withdrawn from 3 public engagements, citing stress-related fatigue, and palace advisors debated whether to permanently bar him from future royal-linked endorsements. Through it all, the Queen's intentions, written, folded, and coded in trust, had triumphed quietly. No gloating, no intervention from Charles. Camilla, despite her titles, found herself outside the moral circle Queen Elizabeth II had drawn in ink. Anmer Hall remained untouched, but within the palace walls the lesson was immortal. One may inherit a crown, but a legacy is earned in the quiet hours. On February 5th, as Norfolk's winter frost glistened across the groves near Sandringham, a black Land Rover Defender rolled through the wrought iron gates of Anmer Hall. Princess Anne arrived, flanked by no press, no footmen, no announcements. Only a small team from the Royal Heritage Office accompanied her, a historian, a gardener, and a conservator of stone. This was not a ceremonial visit or a moment for photographs. It was the first day of true stewardship. Anmer Hall's transformation from family residence to sealed sovereign sanctuary was complete. What remains is no spectacle, but something far rarer in modern monarchy: intentional silence, strategic restraint, and the preservation of royal memory beyond market forces or media attention. Princess Anne, perhaps the most duty-bound royal of her generation, now carries that weight. Palace sources confirm that no portion of Anmer Hall will be opened to the public or converted into a conventional heritage site. 2 formal proposals, one from the National Trust and another from a European Royal Archive initiative, have already been declined. Instead, Anne has outlined a legacy stillness plan, emphasizing restoration over renovation. All historical elements will be preserved exactly as they were when Queen Elizabeth II last visited in 2021. No new wings, no modernisation. The hidden 12th century chapel beneath Anmer Hall will remain consecrated and closed to public display, with a single candle lit annually on the Queen's birthday, April 21st, attended only by Princess Anne and a rotating female member of the royal household. The phonograph vault will continue to preserve analogue copies of the Queen's private recordings, ensuring content cannot be digitised or used commercially. The reflection garden, on the estate's east lawn, will be replanted in exact accordance with the Queen's wartime notes: lavender, rosemary, and white roses in precise proportions. Anmer Hall's few visitors will be members of the royal family, and even they are expected to approach in quiet reflection. When asked why the estate will not serve educational purposes or public exhibitions, Anne reportedly replied, "Some things are meant to be understood in silence, not curated in glass, even in death." In doing so, Queen Elizabeth II continues to shape the tone of Britain's monarchy. Where modern royal discourse often succumbs to social media, branding, and personal memoirs, Anmer Hall stands as an enduring counterpoint: dignity, withholding, and the unspoken. The Anne Codex, still under sealed review at Windsor's South Archive, has inspired a new royal ethical framework, tentatively dubbed the Sanctum Charter, drafted under Anne's supervision. The charter may designate additional properties, such as Wood Farm and Dean Farm Lodge, as untouchable, ensuring they remain exempt from commercial exploitation or heritage franchising. The measure is not about restricting public access. It is about protecting history from distortion. Public reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. A Gov flash poll conducted February 6th showed that 76% of Britons support Anne's sole stewardship of Anmer Hall, 81% believe the Queen's Codex should remain sealed and protected, and 64% oppose any attempt to commercialise or turn the estate into a tourist site. Social media, often brutal toward royal discretion, responded with unusually unified admiration. A royal who does not sell the past to subsidise the present. Princess Anne may not wear the crown, but she holds the spine of the monarchy. True legacy is preserved in silence, not broadcast for spectacle. With no direct heirs holding senior royal titles, she has signalled that future custodians of Anmer Hall will be selected for temperament and trust, not simply bloodline. Potential figures include Lady Louise Windsor, Elizabeth II's granddaughter, or Princess Charlotte, should her future lie outside active sovereign responsibility. Other possibilities, like Zara Tindall, daughter of Princess Anne's younger sister, remain under quiet consideration. On the evening of February 5th, as light faded over Norfolk, an official palace photograph was released. Princess Anne, standing alone before Anmer Hall's ivy-covered facade, dressed in her riding coat, hands gloved, eyes steady. The manor's upper windows glowed softly behind her. She did not smile. She did not speak. She simply stood, embodying the Queen's silence. Now, in that stillness, a nation remembered what royalty can achieve when it chooses to protect rather than perform. Anmer Hall is no longer merely a residence, it is a covenant. In a world of noise, it has become the monarchy's last sacred hush. Like, comment and subscribe to follow every untold story from the royal sanctum and witness history preserved in silence.